Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, August 18th, 2022, and this is a land use meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County. It is an absolutely beautiful day today in Manatee County, and we're going to start the day the way we always do. We're going to start by honoring God, and then we're going to honor our great nation. So today with the invocation is going to be, I have the wrong thing in front of me, actually.
Rabbi Judah.
Rabbi Judah.
Yes, sir.
Judah Hungerman.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, and then with the Pledge of Allegiance, we will have our Army veteran and County Commissioner Reggie Bellamy. So at this time, if you're able, please stand.
Abba Bashamayim, Father in heaven, I ask you would bless this gathering, give wisdom to those who have chosen to serve our community, Lord God. I pray your blessings upon Manatee County, upon the commissioners, the sheriff's department, and all those who serve all of us in this county, Lord God. And we ask you would give peace in this room at this meeting, Lord God, and give wisdom to those who take care of the business on our behalf, and bless each and every one of them and their families through Yeshua. Amen and amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi Judah, and thank you for your service to our community. I apologize, the wrong date was put in front of me. So we're going to start off then with changes to the agenda. Mr. Paul.
Thank you. Good morning. So there was an updated memo on August 16th, 2022. There was an add-on item to the consent agenda, item number 18, amendments to the interlocal agreements, CDBG home co-op, urban county qualification, and documents were attached to the online agenda. There was also an add-on item to the commissioner's agenda, which is item number 19, discussion of support or non-support to Manatee County managing of a flea market on Anna Maria Island. And then during the for the consent agenda, changes to item number 11, a ratification of collective bargaining agreement between Manatee County and the International Association of EMTs and Paramedics, Local R5-747, and adoption of budget resolution B-22-135, amending the annual budget for Manatee County, Florida for fiscal year 2022. They added underlined language above the subject of the item, and public comment letter was attached to the memo. Item number 15, free fare on transit bus routes for August 23rd and November 8th, 2022 for elections. They revised the resolution to reflect correct adoption date and attached to the memo. Under advertised public hearings for presentation scheduled, item number 16, PA 2108, Ordinance 22-61, Ellington 96th Avenue East, for small-scale comprehensive plan map and text amendment. It was a legislative item led by Dorothy Rainey, one of our principal planners. There were public comment letters attached to the memo and changes to the staff report in strike-through and underlined format. And then the updated memo on August 17th, 2022, under advertised public hearings presentation scheduled, item number 16, PA 2108, Ordinance 22-61, Ellington 96th Avenue East, small-scale comprehensive plan map and text amendment. There were additional public comment letters attached. And that is it for the update. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, any items you'd like removed from consent? All right. Hearing none, we will go into proclamations. Vanessa Baugh, you'll be presenting today's proclamation, which is adoption and presentation of proclamation designating September 11th, 2022 as Tribute to Heroes Day in Manatee County. Who is here to accept the proclamation? If you would stand, take position behind Commissioner Baugh at the podium, please.
Chief Bailey.
That's right, all the top brass.
I knew it had to be. How are you this morning? It's good to see you.
You look very presidential with all of them standing behind you, ma'am.
Can we get a picture?
No.
Come on down. Yeah. So we can get all of you in here. Yeah, now I know why you're here. I think all of us remember 9/11 as one of the worst days in our history. That being said, whereas September the 11th, 2022 marks the 21st anniversary of one of the most horrific acts in the history of the United States, the attack upon our homeland by terrorists who hijacked 4 jetliners to execute multiple homicide bombing attacks of great evil. And whereas the American people wish to remember and honor the victims lost in the tragedy with courage, strength, and dignity. And whereas September the 11th, 2001, proved to the world that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Amen. Heroes are the people sitting by you today, those who gave selfishly and contributed to the strength of our country, and those who responded without hesitation and are ready to respond again, whenever and wherever they are needed. And whereas firefighters, law enforcement, and emergency medical services personnel are highly trained public servants who work under demanding and dangerous conditions, and the courageous and unselfish acts of these public servants proved again that day that our country is truly the land of the free and the home of the brave. And whereas, for many years to come, when our children stand with their hands over their hearts and pledge allegiance to the United States of America, they will more clearly understand that as one nation under God, the United States is indivisible, a country unable to be divided by tragedy. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County, Florida, that September the 11th, 2022 shall be known, designated, and set aside as tribute to Heroes Day in Manatee County, Florida, and the board urges all citizens to remember those lost but not forgotten on September the 11th, 2001, and to pray for the families and the friends of those who died. Adopted with a quorum present and voting this 18th day of August, 2022, signed by our chairperson, Kevin Von Ostenbridge, and Angel Coloniso, clerk of the court. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, County Attorney. We'd just like to say thank you for this proclamation. For years, we've been doing this, and it's very impactful to the emergency services, your emergency services, and there's quite a diverse group that we have between law enforcement, EMS, and fire agencies in this county, and they're true professionals. They work hard for not only here, but as you know, we travel around the state and, sometimes out of state to perform tasks during hurricanes. But this proclamation for September 11th is really what it's all about. Us as American citizens standing up and doing what is right. The gentlemen behind me have all showed their time to come here because this is really important to all of us. This year, September 11th is on a Sunday, which is very special because families can now attend, because normally it's a weekday. So we'd like to put that invitation out to each and every one of the county citizens. It's going to be at Rossi Park, and there'll be invitations and advertisement, but we'd really like to see as many people there as we can. This is 21st year. Last year was a milestone. So as we carry on through this, we want to make sure that we honor those that were lost, the ones that are, continue to serve, and the ones who continue just going on because they lost loved ones. So thank you again for this proclamation, and God bless America. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Satcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone here to receive the proclamation. I remember during that time searching for some explanation or some logic in why someone from halfway around the world would attempt to kill so many people, innocent lives. And at the end of the day, or the weeks or the months or years, the only conclusion is that some people yield to evil. And I'm glad we have heroes like you and like those that are in our community that when evil raises its head, they're willing to stand up. And so I want to echo what you said, which is God bless America. And with that, I'd like to move to accept the proclamation today. Thank you.
So a motion by Commissioner Satcher to accept and a second by Commissioner Whitmore. Commissioner Serbia, you're next on the board.
Oh, thank you. Are you going to take the vote first?
I figure we just
Okay.
finish comments. And then
Well,
we'll vote.
I just want to say that thank you all so much for being here and all the service that you provide to Manatee County and throughout the state of Florida. I loved what you said because when there's an emergency in the state, everybody rallies to go and help who needs help. September 11th, 2001, I was working here at Manatee County. I was in the planning department, and we were all horrified and around the TV watching the attack on America. Thank you. We are so grateful for all of our heroes like you. I thank you for being here. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk, or excuse me, Mr. Clerk. I am a creature of habit. Mr. Clerk, it passes unanimously. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you for everything you do for our county.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we're going to open the floor to citizen comment on future agenda items. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, but is likely to appear on a future agenda before this board? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the phone. Is anyone called in to speak on future agenda items?
Caller 268, please state your name for the record and your county of residency.
So caller, please press *6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on a future agenda item. Start off by stating your first, your last name, and your county of residence. *6 to unmute. Okay, we're going to close citizen comment. And we'll move on to consent. I suppose we'll go to citizen comment for that. Is there anyone here who would like to come forward to speak on our consent agenda? Any citizen comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll try the phone again. Has anyone called in to speak on consent agenda?
There's no one on the phone.
Okay, so we're going to close citizen comment for consent agenda, and we'll entertain motions for consent. Oh, my goodness. Okay. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Cruz, a second by Commissioner Baugh. All in favor of passing consent, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Mr. Clerk, consent passes unanimously. Okay, then we're going to move on to advertised public hearings, presentation upon request. And Mrs. DePaul, I'll let you introduce item number 16, please. Excuse me, that's a presentation scheduled, Mrs. DePaul, item 16. We are now on the last page of the agenda, top of the last page.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 16, PA 2108, Ordinance 22-61, Ellington, 96th Avenue East, Small-Scale Comprehensive Plan Map and Text Amendment, legislative item. This is a private initiated map and text amendment to Element 2, Future Land Use, element of the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use classification of 13.62 acres of specific real property generally located on the south side of US 301, west of 96th Avenue East, Ellington, Florida, and Manatee County from Res 9, which is residential 9 dwelling units per acre, future land use classification, to the ROR, which stands for Retail, Office, and Residential Future Land Use Classification, providing for a specific property development condition in the text of the comprehensive plan to limit the density and intensity maximum potential to 217 dwelling units or 100,000 square feet of retail commercial use.
Thank you, ma'am. Who is here for the applicant?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Scott Rudisell. I'm here on behalf of Casto Net Lease Properties. And where's my clicker? All right, I'll briefly introduce our project team here. We have Matt Drews and Dan Moyer are here with Casto. And we have Katie Labar, who is our planner on this project with Stantec, here with me as well. All right, so the request before you is a small-scale future land use map amendment for approximately 13.62 acres located at US 301 North and 96th Avenue East from Res 9 to ROR, with a text amendment providing for limitations, which Katie will get into in her part of the presentation. The ROR future land use category allows for both residential uses and commercial uses outside of your activity node areas. It is generally limited to the county's designated arterial roadways and allows flexibility to be responsive to market demands on these major corridors where you can have commercial or residential projects. US 301 North obviously is a designated arterial, is actually one of your larger designated arterials, being planned for 6 lanes in this area. There's also ROR existing both just west of the site and also further east along US 301. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie, and then our project team will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning. My name is Katie Labar. I'm a planner and project manager with Stantec, representing Casto Net Lease Properties, and excited to share details about this project with you today. As Scott indicated, the site is located at the southwest quadrant of US 301 and Foy Road, or 96th Avenue East, in the Ellington area. The site, as he said, is bordered by existing development. To the north is the Creekside Preserve community, a community of single-family residential dwelling units. To the east is Veranda Springs, a manufactured home park. To the south is existing Timberley, a residential community with paired villas. And then farther west, on the south side of US 301, is Parkwood Square, shopping center with gas and fast food, just a little bit farther west on the hard corner. The northeastern quadrant of the intersection of Erie Road, Old Tampa Road, and US 301 also will soon be home to a Lowe's Home Improvement Center at Creekside Oak Commons. As we've described, the request before you today is for a small-scale comprehensive plan map amendment, as well as a text amendment. We're asking to amend the future land use category from the Res 9 future land use category to retail, office, residential. And with that, we include a text amendment where we are committing to 217 dwelling units or a maximum of 100,000 square feet of retail and commercial square feet. This is a picture, an exhibit showing the existing future land use category of Res 9. And again, you can see that we are in very close proximity to existing retail, office, residential to the west. As Scott said, there is also retail, office, residential land use farther east along 301. We note that the site is in and is surrounded by a residential category, but again, it's just east of that ROR category. And then this is an exhibit showing the proposed land use category in relation, again, to other existing land use categories. Given the frontage on 301, this category will certainly lend itself to a form of development that is more consistent with the intensity and density that should be encouraged along arterials like 301. There are several approvals along the corridor of 301. Residential, it has been absolutely significant over the last 20-plus years. Commercial development has naturally lagged a bit behind residential, and so we're starting to see those region-serving commercial uses with the construction of Lowe's Home Improvement, as I shared earlier. You can also see that the site is situated near a strong mix of residential and commercial development to both the east and the west, with Silverleaf to the east, Chin Road Commercial, a public shopping center that also has inline retail and out parcels, as well as Parish Oaks, which is a multifamily development, also with commercial out parcels along the frontage of US 301. Just a few details about how this application complies with the comprehensive plan. The site is located west of the future development area boundary. And it's also located adjacent to residential and mixed-use developments that are either existing or under construction. With future site plans that will be required to come before this board, certain techniques will be employed to ensure compatibility with adjacent land use, existing land uses. And this policy 2.1.2.7 details several of the different mitigation factors, different ways that as planners we provide for that, and we commit to that and show that on preliminary site plans that again will be brought before this board for consideration. And then policy 2.6.5.5, this small-scale comp plan and map amendment is considered infill development along 301. The site will include, again, appropriate buffering, appropriate setbacks to achieve compatibility with surrounding uses, and will be required to demonstrate compliance with the comprehensive plan and land development code. I want to talk just a little bit about the process, where we are today, and what the next steps would be should we obtain approval of this comprehensive plan amendment. The site today is zone plan development residential, and I'll talk a little bit about some of those prior approvals in just a minute. But the site no longer has a valid site plan approval, and so nobody can initiate development without going through a new plan process. The request, again, is a small-scale comp plan and map and text amendment. This amendment will limit the density and intensity on the 13.62 acres to 100,000 square feet of commercial or 16 dwelling units. If the site is developed with residential uses, a preliminary site plan, again, will have to come before this board for examination and consideration. Before it comes before this board, it will be evaluated by county staff to ensure, again, compliance with all the requirements of the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan. But it will require a public hearing. If the site is developed for commercial purposes, we would have to rezone the property from plan development residential to plan development commercial. Same process, we would have to come back before this board with the rezone application and the new site plan, and all of that would be vetted through staff before it comes before this body. And so, no matter what, we have to come back to you to show you exactly what we intend to do on this property, and I think that's a very important point to share. I wanted to share a couple of examples of what different forms of development might look like on this property. This is a site plan for commercial development of, typical grocery, anchored shopping center with some inline retail and a few out parcels. You will note that site access is from US 301 as well as Foy Road. And then this is a multifamily development, potential development, again, site access from US 301 and Foy Road. A little bit, I said, I kind of teased, I wanted to share something about the history of the site. And so in 1995, this site was approved for 150 multifamily units as well as 70 single-family attached units on approximately 50 acres. That was the original Timberley approval. In 1999, this 13.62 acres was approved for a reduction in density from 150 units to 112 multifamily units. And the site plan before you now is that plan approval that was approved in 1999. I'll point out that site access was granted along 301 with ingress and egress onto 301, as well as ingress and egress onto Foy Road in compliance with the requirements of the Land Development Code because it exceeded 100 dwelling units, and you have to have two means of access in order to have more than 100 dwelling units per the Land Development Code. So I think it's important to acknowledge that multifamily has been contemplated on this property for well over 30 years now, for nearly 30 years now, and site access for this particular property was set a very long time ago, long before we were looking at this property. Just a little bit about outreach to the community, because that's been very important to our team. We hosted a neighborhood workshop on April the 20th. We mailed notices to 49 households. 13 people attended that meeting, and we had very good dialogue with the residents at that neighborhood workshop. At the request of the community, we also met with the neighbors last Thursday afternoon at the Rocky Bluff Library. We had approximately 30 people in attendance at that meeting, and again, we had very good dialogue. We shared what the process that we're going through right now is, what our intentions are, and how we are committed to staying engaged with the neighborhood and sharing and collaborating on the next steps, again, should we obtain approval from this board today. A lot of the questions that were asked were specific to physical development. Comprehensive planning is kind of nebulous, and it's theoretical. People are really concerned about what is that buffer going to look like? How are you going to impact traffic and noise? And those are details that we don't have yet. And so we talked about that, and we talked about what those next steps are. Themes regarding just that the neighborhood workshop in April are included in your packet and are made part of the public record. So just to summarize where we are and what the details of this application are, we're asking for a comp plan, map, and text amendment, maximum intensity of 100,000 square feet. We're asking to amend the future land use category from Res 9 to ROR. This application is consistent with the requirements of the comprehensive plan. We have a very positive staff report. We had a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, and we respectfully request adoption today of this amendment. Our team is happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. So questions for the applicant. Commissioner Serbia.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Excellent presentation as always. So I understand that you want to do either residential or commercial. And this site, as currently in the future land use category of Res 9.
Sorry, future land use category of Res 9 would not allow this intensity of commercial. So the change to ROR would allow that. And my question is about access.
Okay.
So when I look at US 301, I see that previously in the 90s, access would have been granted. Not across from 91st, where there's currently an access. And I think that would be problematic. It looks like there's a wetland stubbing out there. Have you guys met with DOT, and do you believe that access will be appropriate on US 301?
We have initiated, we have had meetings with FDOT because that is a state roadway. And of course, we would have to go through the site access permitting process with the next step with site development. We expect that we can obtain approval of right in, right out at that location. It would not be a full access. But we do expect that it would be right in, right out, and that's what we will be pursuing with FDOT.
Okay, great. And then Foy Road, what's the classification of Foy Road?
It's a local roadway.
It's a local road. And so to have non-residential commercial access on a local road, do you see any compatibility issues with that, especially with the intensity of the residential just to the east?
Well, what I can say is that it does not meet county standards today. And that's certainly something that we would have to evaluate as part of our traffic studies. And it's something that we would have to take into consideration during site plan preparation. There are no direct access points other than the church at Old Tampa Road and Foy Road. So there's only one driveway access right now onto that roadway. But I would expect, again, during site plan review process and at the direction of your staff here at Manatee County, improvements would have to be made to ensure compatibility and ensure that that road can function with the volume of traffic that's proposed.
Okay, because that would likely be the primary access since you could only get a right in, right out on US 301.
I really think that for multifamily, should it be multifamily, I think that the front door would definitely be on 301 with resident-only access onto Foy Road. But again, those are, because we're at comp plan level, it's really kind of difficult to know exactly, how that's all going to shake out. And again, those are details that we'll address with the proper studies and with site planning at preliminary site plan stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cruz.
Yeah, that's a quick question, so I can stay on point as usual. Casto does mixed income properties anyway, correct? I mean, you've historically, at least maybe not in the state of Florida, but elsewhere, they've done some level of workforce housing with things. I mean, if they're looking to do multifamily here and get a density bump for it, they can get an even bigger density bump just by utilizing that. Is there a reason? Because this is time sensitive, this is time consuming and costly to go through this whole process just to get to an ROR if the intention is to do multifamily, to build, what, 217, when you can basically build over 270 units right now without going through all these hoops you're jumping through, just with the 25% affordability, and Casto has done that in the past. Is that, to lead us to believe that it's more likely to be commercial, which I don't have a problem with, but is it more likely to be commercial then? Because otherwise, they can do this without all of us sitting here right now, just by putting in 60-something affordable housing units, which is 120%, it's not even really affordable, and they'd still get 204, market rate, which is almost the same as the 217 that they're trying to get up to right now. So they basically build what they want to build now just by building some workforce housing there in an area where we have heavy growth and is, God willing, going to be a lot more employment opportunities in the parish area in the future, so this is a great location for it, and it's a great location for as much density as we can put there. It's on a major road. It's got the utilities. I'm 100% comfortable with what they're proposing. I just wish Casto, who has the development experience in the background to do this type of mixed income development, would utilize that experience that they have in the past and just skip this whole step altogether and just take your R20 and slap 70 workforce housing units on there and take the more density, honestly.
I mean, in terms of the plans, this project is kind of, it's gone back and forth between, even over the last 6 months, between commercial and residential. So I think they're leaning more towards residential now, but I mean, at this point, they're not planning to do an affordable housing project here at this location. But I understand your point.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Yeah, this is a great infill project, and commercial does follow residential, so I would assume, that's what I was assuming you'd do commercial, because it's a lot of there's a lot of residential around it. So commercial does, we always wait till the rooftops come. We always tell residents that, like, especially in the parish area in the North County, you're building all these houses and you've got to have commercial to support those rooftops. So I know you said you've gone back and forth, but have you definitely made up your mind yet what you're going to do?
Chairman, Commissioner Whitmore, as Scott indicated, the team we've gone back and forth for the last 2 years, and that decision has not been made yet. So we are working through that.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Satcher, you're the last one on the board, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. So, I mean, there's a lot of extra hoops to go through to make this, to go the commercial route. I think their mind's made up. I'll just put it that way. It's that's just, I understand the process is what it is, and I know that everybody has to go through the rules that we have, but it is a little bit frustrating that we don't just say what we're doing. But I understand. And then just the other thing is, so why is this an Ellington address? I mean, this is east of Tampa, Old Tampa Road, east of Erie.
Yes, Ellington.
Go ahead.
I have no answer for you on, the address.
I think it's like the Sarasota part of Manatee.
Yeah.
I've always been told it, anyway. But, I mean, this is parish. This is what everyone watching at home considers parish. And then you're looking to move this into commercial. What's the square footage that it would be the maximum on as commercial?
We've, the limitation that's proposed with the D5 provision is 100,000 square feet max.
And then how did you feel as far as with residents? How many residents were notified of the neighborhood meeting, you said?
Let me consult my notes. I just want to make sure that I'm accurate. We notified 49 households for the neighborhood workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to present for staff? Well, who would like to versus who has to?
Yeah, that's better.
Who will be presenting for staff?
Designated.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dorothy Rainey for staff, and I have not been sworn. It's legislative. Never mind. Okay, so I won't really be adding much more than what Katie provided, but the request is for approximately 13.62 acres to be, to have the future land use category amended from Res 9 to ROR, Retail Office Residential. It has about 4.13 acres of wetlands on it on the west end of it, as you can see on the aerial. Again, from Res 9 to ROR, small scale amendment. The Res 9 allows a maximum density of 9 dwelling units or 20 in the urban corridor. And if they get a density bonus, of course. The maximum intensity is 0.35 floor area ratio, or 1.0 if they're in the urban corridor again, or an activity node. The ROR will allow up to 16 dwelling units per acre, or 32 in the urban corridor or with density bonuses. And of course, the maximum intensity, 0.5 or 1.0 in the activity node or urban corridor. And as the applicant indicated, they're agreeing to a D5 provision, which is a text amendment to the comprehensive plan, which will limit the density to 217 dwelling units, and then, which is the 16 times the 13.62 acres, and then the intensity is limited to 100,000 square feet. And there is the current future land use category. As you can see, it is surrounded by more Res 9. However, as the applicant indicated, there's a lot of ROR to the west and further up to the east on 301 on the corridor. This is the proposed, and as you can see, there's just a little intrusion of the residential uses from Timberley between the ROR to the west and this. And as they mentioned, the residential kind of went forward and developed before the commercial started coming in. This is the zoning. Again, it's PDR from the original approval of, it was slated to be part of Timberley. This is the surrounding uses. I thought I had that. Creekside added, the Benderson, with, I believe, the Lowe's. But anyway, these are surrounding projects that have been recently approved. The public facilities available to support this development is for schools is Blackburn Elementary, Buffalo Creek Middle School, and the Parish Community High School. There's transit. The nearest transit stop is approximately 2.6 miles west of the site on Mendoza Road and 72nd Avenue, or Victory Road. Parks available in the area are within a 5-mile radius include Water Oak Park, Ola May Sims Park, and Kingsfield Recreation Center. Excuse me. So the positive aspects are that the retail office residential is a logical expansion or continuation of existing development to the east and west on both sides of the US 301 corridor. And the proposed ROR future land use category will allow infill with the more appropriate residential or non-residential uses that the amendment would allow. Negatives are with the requested amendment to change the future land use category to retail office residential. The maximum square footage that may be approved for the project area is 593,287, subject to commercial locational criteria. Of course, mitigating is that the future land use category change will be adopted along with the D5 provision that the applicant has agreed to, which, as we mentioned before, is limiting density to 217 dwelling units, and the intensity or the square footage of non-residential to 100,000 square feet. Of course, any future development of the site will have to comply with the Manatee County Land Development Code, including but not limited to building setbacks, open space, traffic design, roadway improvements, and stormwater requirements. Also, a detailed analysis of capacity and impacts on public facilities, including utilities, transportation will be required at the time of future development of the site. And then last, adequate buffering, landscaping, and design should provide a transition between the future development of the site and the residential areas. So, is it delayed? There we go. So the request appears to meet the applicable policies of the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code regulations, and the request is for approval of the plan amendment PA 21-08, ordinance 22-61. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Commissioner Servia is on the board with questions for staff.
Yes, thank you, Dorothy. Very good presentation. So let me just ask you a couple of questions. Does this site meet commercial locational criteria?
It does, being that it's on a urban, the thoroughfare or urban collector, or whatever you want. I mean, not urban, I'm sorry. It's a urban urban thoroughfare. Thoroughfare, so yeah.
Per the comp plan, so you're saying it does meet commercial locational criteria?
I believe so. I know I've had another project that did not have an actual node, and as Katie mentioned.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think we have to direct those questions to the applicant.
Oh,
That particular
okay.
question, the applicant will have to answer. I can't answer it. I know the answer, but I can't answer it. I'm not the witness.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just wondering, and Katie can answer this during her rebuttal. If it does or does not meet commercial locational criteria, is there a limitation in our comp plan for how much commercial can be developed on those sites? I'm sure that's, if there is, it's probably been reviewed. And as my understanding is that when you go to ROR, you don't have to meet commercial locational criteria. But I'll ask the applicant to bring that up during rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Whitmore.
Rainey, I have a question. And I understand where Commissioner Cruz is coming from. When we're having these projects coming before us, and then we're asking, well, you know, you could do this, and you wouldn't have to do this, but we could get some affordable housing. How long are these projects in the pipeline? I think the sooner we get the criteria set, or whatever, I know you're going to say we have some now, but they opted not to go this way, maybe. And how many years, or what's the average time to go through this process for a project to come before us today?
Average 6 to 8 months, I believe,
Okay.
is the usual. Yeah, it just depends on, you know, the applicant's responsiveness and.
And when I first started, it was heavy and affordable housing in almost every project. And at that time, we could say we want affordable housing, and they would put it in just so because they knew they could get it approved faster, because we were so short of affordable housing. And then it went back, well, that's not the rules. So you got to, if we don't want to do it, we don't have to, and then it switched to where it is today. I think if we make the process known that we really, and we are, but when you get with the group together and move forward with a little bit easier, you know, information for all the development world, we'll probably hopefully see some more sooner. But again, a lot of these projects have been in here 6 to 8 months. So, and I don't think we engineer at the die as we used to, but I think the lawyers stopped us, so actually it was Ms. Shank. So it would be good if we could do that, but in the process, that's what happened. We used to do it all the time. Well, I did.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cruz.
I'm just responding real quick to Commissioner Whitmore, because she said right now they don't know what they're doing. They do know what they're doing. Just, that's not here nor there. I'm not dialing. But the D5 provision specifically caps the number of resident. They're agreeing to 217, which is the 16 units per the acreage. So they're flat out saying right here, there's 0% chance of affordable units because they're capping the number of units. They can't come back for a density bonus later based on D5s.
Well, when I read this and went over it this weekend, I assumed they were doing commercial. So by the information I read, yeah, okay.
That's the only way I'm looking.
Now we know what they're doing, maybe.
Okay. Thank you, Dorothy. No other commissioners on the board. So then we'll go to applicant rebuttal.
Well, we have to open the public.
Do you want to do public comment first? We'll do public comment. I have 2 cards up here, and the 2 cards are Jeannie Buckstein, followed by Ken Knight. So as you step up to the podium, start off by stating your first and your last name, and then your county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on this specific item.
My name is Jean Buckstein, and I live in Manatee County, and I live in Timberley that you've been hearing about. Thank you for this opportunity, commissioners. I want to point out, and Katie, I'm sorry, but the last meeting that I watched on TV that you met with these developers, you charged them at that time to come back to the next meeting with what they were going to propose, retail or residence, and they haven't done that. It's difficult to prepare what you're going to say to you when you don't know exactly what they're going to develop. So I took a different route, and I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm doing it. Commissioner Servia, thank you for pointing out Foy Road. 96th Avenue sounds like a big old street. Foy Road is not as wide as over there. There's no line down the middle. I walked there last night with my dog under the big old oak trees on both sides, and it's like I'm walking in Mayberry. To ruin that, it would be so wrong, really. We have 6 wetland areas in our development. We take care of them every month, the wetlands, the lakes. We take pride in them. We have so many little animals, so many little birds. I told my husband, and what is it, an aardvark? Is that what he was? I don't know. He walked in front of me across the street this morning walking my dog. If you put those apartments in there, it's going to change everything. The other thing I wanted to point out that I haven't heard anybody say, and maybe it's very premature, is our area, Timberley, is primarily retired people. The people in Veranda Springs, all those hundreds of mobile homes, they're primarily, if not exclusively, retired. We're not too far down the road from other retirement areas. I went to the doctor yesterday. If you live in Parrish and you want to go to the doctor, you're going over the river, over the river, over the river. I'm saying, would you consider ROR office for doctors, for medical care, that these retired people, me too, would have easier access to? When you're retired, of course, none of you are, but you stop driving at a certain point. You may have to pay for a taxi, or you may have to get a neighbor. It needs to be more convenient medical care north of the river. And so I'm asking you, please, minimize what would be done to us, because it is just, we're a jewel out there in that little area, and we'd really like to keep it that. I've been there 19 years. I was the original owner. So that's what I'm asking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Ken Knight. So please state your first, your last name, your county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on this specific item, sir.
Thank you. Ken Knight, Manatee County. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. I live in Creekside Preserve, which is directly across the street from hopefully the non-use of that property. We have the wetlands right directly across the street, and we want to make sure that those are never going to be disturbed. Secondly, and foremost, I believe, the children of our neighborhood picked a school bus up right outside, and the school bus must park or stop on 301. Since January, we've had 2 accidents with the school bus there, not hit, but there. It's because that's a 50-mile-an-hour zone up through there on 301. And the school bus is stopping and everybody else is on their phones or drinking coffee, they're damn sure not paying attention to what they're doing driving, or we wouldn't have these accidents. I think the right turn only onto 301 is going to be a negative impact, because most of those people are going to go and make a U-turn on 96 and go up 301 West. I don't believe that that's a good idea at all. And I don't believe that any of the structures in and around that parcel of land are more than 2 stories. If you're going to put in commercial and or apartments, you're going to be a lot higher than 2 stories. And I think it would definitely make an impact on the scene, the surrounding area, looking out into that area, which is right now is pretty pristine. And I think most of us in the area these folks here and ourselves and the people of Veranda Springs certainly enjoyed the, looking at the scenery we have now instead of apartment buildings. And I do think when consideration needs to be taken, especially with the concern for our children and school buses. You have 2 school bus stops in the morning and 2 school bus stops in the afternoon. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to come forward at this time to speak on this specific agenda item? Ma'am, please state your first, your last name, your county of residence, and you have 3 minutes on this specific item.
Hi, Carol Ann Feltz, Myakka City. I told you I was going to come today and ask for 2 things. And actually, I didn't make it to the future comment section because of traffic. And I think I have the longest distance to go to get here. I also wanted to say thank you very much for the citizens that have come up here. The 2 things that I was going to ask. Number 1, we have to get these agendas out in a little more prompt manner. Right now, there are some
Ma'am,
things.
we're on a
I'm sticking to it, Kevin.
We're on a specific agenda item, please.
Got it. 2 things, Kevin. Patience. So, number 1 is that having these things on the agenda so that we can be prepared to speak intelligently with you on the topics on the agenda. We spoke yesterday about maybe it's not possible with our regular agenda, with our land use.
Ma'am, we're on a specific agenda item. Either get on the agenda item, ma'am, or I'm going to have to cut you off,
Have
okay?
3 minutes. Give it 3 minutes.
Specific agenda item.
3 minutes. Okay, so
Thank you, ma'am.
we
I
have
appreciate
a
it.
land development
Thank you,
code
ma'am.
coming up. Kevin, I
Thank-
have 3 minutes at the agenda. Don't do this. Let me
Thank
get
you-
to my point.
thank you, ma'am.
Let me get to my
Thank-
point. I have 3 minutes. What
I
is
gave
your
you 2
problem?
opportunities to get to your point.
I'm getting to it, but you keep interrupting me, so you could start the clock when I have your
Deputy
attention,
Webb?
and you could give me my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
I have 3 minutes, Kevin. Let me get it out.
Thank
Number
you, ma'am.
1, we have a land
Ma'am,
development
your time is up.
review
Thank you,
coming
ma'am.
up. We have citizens that are speaking.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Issue. I would like to apologize
Thank you.
for your Zoom meeting that you had, in which some of the residents.
Carol, it has to be regarding this issue.
But I do apologize.
We're in recess for 1 minute. Okay, everyone take your seat, please. We are back.
Okay, what are we doing?
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? It's a continuation of citizen comment on this specific agenda item, which is item number 16. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak on item number 16? Item 16. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the phone. Has anyone called in to speak on item 16? No callers. We're going to close citizen comment, and we'll go to staff closing remarks.
We do.
No closing remarks? Oh, would you like to speak before? So then we'll go to Commissioner Cruz and then Whitmore. Commissioner Cruz.
Oh, I was just waiting for delivery.
That's what I figured.
Okay, I'm not.
You want to, okay, go ahead, Commissioner Whitmore.
When it comes to, first of all, I want to address the citizens' comments. there's two different companies fighting for a hospital in that area. So there may be one hospital or two hospitals. So you'll have more hospitals than anybody. So that's coming in. Also, there's an emergency room coming on 301. And there's tons of new doctor's offices. I'm a nurse, so I hear about all this stuff. There are tons of new doctor's offices moving in there because they see the growth. So if you haven't seen it, there's a bunch of new ones even recently. So just type in like family practice on Google and you'll see. Also, if the applicant can address if there are any improvements, now I'm on Foy Road, if it's planned with this development at all or not, because I think that would address some of the citizens' concerns. To me, which is a less intense use of commercial versus residential? You know, I'd like to hear your opinion. I would assume residential is less, but when I read all the backup, I really and truly thought it was going to be commercial because of all the housing around. And that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Staff, you have no closing remarks, correct? Okay, we'll go to applicant rebuttal. Mr. Rudisil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so first, to address Commissioner Servia's question, this site does not meet commercial locational criteria. That is why originally the request came in for ROR, and that's why you see it along these corridors, is because you can't get, on a normal roadway, you can't get commercial outside of the commercial locational criteria. ROR is an exception, so that's why you see it along the major corridors. That's also why you saw it initially in this application, because the original intent on this site was to do commercial, and there was actually a commercial rezone application in. But as I mentioned before, the current thinking on this site is actually residential. We've been honest with the folks in our meetings. We're being honest with you all here. We're not trying to hide the ball. The current intent is residential. We actually have a pre-app scheduled tomorrow on a residential multifamily project for this site. This site's been approved for multifamily since 1995, so we're not introducing a new use here. That's been the intent for this site for some time. As it relates to Timberley, you know, we're not designing a site here, but just if you didn't notice when you looked at the aerials, there's a very large conservation area. I think the nearest home to the south in Timberley is like 250 feet. They have mature buffering, so this piece on 301 is isolated from the rest of Timberley, and it makes a very good use for the site, either for commercial or multifamily. Going to Mr. Knight's question, the wetlands here will not be impacted. There's a large wetland area, so where they are across 301, they're not going to see any difference across the street from them. That whole area will be preserved. As far as Foy Road, we don't know at this point. That will be, you know, once the final use is established and we get into the final site planning design, that's when they'll look at those types of, you know, whether we need to make improvements to Foy Road or not, depending on whether there's access there. We anticipate there will be, but those will come later down the road. And Commissioner Cruz, I appreciate your comments and your consistency on the affordable housing issue. I do have an affordable housing project coming. People are looking at that, and we as the lawyers and the planners, we're making the pitch every time they come to us to say, look, you have this option here, and we are starting to get some interest there. So I know you had a couple approved recently, and I've got at least one more coming for you. So with that, we'll conclude unless there are any further questions.
Commissioner Cruz is on the board, sir. Commissioner Cruz?
I'm just for deliberating.
He's just deliberating. Thank you. Commissioner Cruz, begin your deliberations.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear the pre-apps on gearing up for multi. I still think it's commercial, but we'll see what happens. It
You think
most
it's gonna
likely
be
is.
commercial?
Yes, 100%.
Oh,
I mean, first
okay.
off, there's a lot of rooftops there, but we've got some good commercial there. This is becoming a commercial corridor, God willing, not like a UTC. But you got everything with Five Below and Lowe's and everything going across the street. You got the public shopping center immediately to the west. I mean, you're starting to see a concentration of the bigger box type commercial here, which is good because we get the more boutique kind of commercial out by downtown Paris. So look, at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with this. I still have a problem with our future land use map. I just think it's outdated, and this is the kind of thing where it's outdated. And every time we have to come here, every time we get yelled at for making changes because we're told we shouldn't be making changes, if the map would be appropriately drawn today, we wouldn't even have to have this discussion. This is a 6-lane US 301 surrounded by other big commercial. There's almost no reason why we should be having this conversation. This is where this kind of stuff is supposed to go, not tucked behind something or down some 2-lane road someplace where there's no utilities. We need to fix this map. So this has nothing to do with this project. I'm voting in favor of this project. Regardless, I'd like to see the residential, but I perfectly understand if it's commercial. I just think this is a perfect example of why this map needs to be changed in the first place. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Servia, and then Whitmore.
Yeah, so this site does not meet locational criteria. That's what I suspected. And a little bit of history on ROR. When the comp plan was first adopted, ROR was given to sites that did not meet locational criteria, but were existing commercial. And for a long time, there was a desire not to increase ROR because you didn't want strip centers. You don't want to strip out all of the arterials with commercial. Now, on the flip side of that, there are some problems when you intensify all of the traffic at the intersection. That's another problem that's hard to overcome. My biggest concern with this is Foy Road, because Foy Road is a little, small, local residential street with a lot of residential development on it. But frankly, when I think about the traffic impacts of multifamily versus commercial, I mean, there's going to be a lot of traffic that's going to be dumped on Foy Road either way, but they're different patterns. So I'm still thinking through this. I do have a few concerns with commercial development. They could do residential with what they have today at the same density, I believe. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Commissioner Cruz, am I missing something here? The applicant has said it's going to be residential. You swear it's going to be commercial, and I thought it was going to be commercial. And you just heard Commissioner Servia, it's hard to be commercial. So I just want to get this straight before I vote, what your thoughts are.
Can I respond to this? This is just my hypothetical thought based on having seen these and seeing how it works. At the end of the day, this can be built, as Commissioner Servia just said, this can be built residential right now. This exact site, why, we all hear all this, everything's delayed, it costs money, time is money. They wouldn't be coming here and jumping through these hoops where they can get what they want to do right now as of right, straight up as residential. They're only jumping through these hoops because there's a chance it's going to be commercial. Who's going to spend this time and this money to do something that they're not going to do? My guess is this is going to be commercial. But again, I'm not here to guess. They can do whatever they want. Casto is one of those unique developers who does both.
Right.
You know, if this was one of our single-family home developers, I would know exactly what they're doing. Here, it could be either one, and they're gonna do whatever makes the most sense for the neighborhood and whatever's gonna make the most sense for them. So they have to come back to us and we'll decide at that time. But, this is infill location. I've said from day one that while I don't like giving away free stuff as we're sprawling out endlessly, we should be encouraging infill and encouraging redevelopment, and this is what this is. This is where things like this are supposed to go.
And I wrote in my notes infill when I went over this weekend. And really, now that we're dialoguing, I really don't care either. I was just hoping it was commercial because of all the rooftops. So whatever happens, I'm okay with. And if they do residential, it was going to be less than what they had rights to do. They were going to put less in. So I'm okay with it. Just wanted to get it clear where you're coming from because I'm hearing from the applicant.
Thank you. And I'm a native, so to me, to think that this far out on 301 is infill is just crazy to think how far we've come here, right? How much growth has happened that far, and we're having infill in Parrish. Who would have thought? Yeah, okay, it's Ellington. The order of the board is Satcher, Servia, and Bellamy. Commissioner Satcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, looking at this project, I mean, obviously, there's still options moving forward for the applicant, but looking at just the actions they're taking so far, it seems like it's headed towards commercial. I just want to say, so this is, this is where I go, this is the route I drive daily, or at least to Erie. So I'm with you, and this is my community. I just want to point out some things. First of all, that as it stands now, they're already approved from 1995 for over 200 units. And then if they were to go affordable, they can bump that up to even more units. And so living in that area, if I had to make, in other words, leaving the land pristine so that we can drive by it and enjoy it, man, that'd be great. But I don't think that that's in the cards right now. And so then we do have choices to make. And when someone says, you know, I want to put in some commercial, and then you think there's certain commercial that we would all like to see out there, at least most of us would. I'd like to see a Chick-fil-A if you're listening. So my point is that a multi-unit residential development could already go in there the way things were before they came to us. And if you're like me, I would prefer to see it go commercial because it keeps us from having to drive as far to get to the things that we do all need, the people that live there. So I just, not that I'm excited, you know, about this vote or what we're seeing, but, you know, someone else owns this land. I don't own this land. And so they get to make some decisions, and if their decision is we're going to put in some commercial for this area of Parrish, that seems like the free market might be going in what is, at this point, the best direction for the residents of that area. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Servia.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments, and I like having commercial close to residential too. But I disagree that this is infill development, and here's why. Because infill development means that you have an underutilized piece of land that you then develop to be consistent with the development patterns in the area. And the development patterns on both sides are residential. And so the reason that they're asking for this ROR is to have the ability to do commercial development. It does give me some heartburn, the commercial development. I think it has the greatest risk for compatibility issues with the existing neighborhoods. And that's what I'm always here to look out for, those existing neighborhoods. To me, the most appropriate land use here is multifamily residential. That was what was approved in 1995, has now expired. And they can do with the current future land use category. So just food for thought. I think commercial brings in another element that could affect the quality of life for the residents there. Thank you.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Yep, I move to adopt Plan Amendment PA 21-08/ordinance 22-61 as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Mr. Clerk, we have a motion by Commissioner Bellamy and a second by Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Baugh is still on the board. Commissioner Baugh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've sat back and I've listened to both sides of this issue, and I can tell you from one standpoint, you know, I think residential and commercial would be a win-win for this property. I wish that, you know, the people would just go ahead and say that, but I guess they're not going to. But I will tell you that Casto, you know, is very successful at doing that in other locations. They've done that on Lakewood, Main Street and Lakewood Ranch, and it's a very successful area, so I am hoping that that will come about with the plans, and I look forward to seeing this again. I agree, and I don't normally agree with Commissioner Servia on much of anything, but I do agree this is not infill. So, you know, I will tell you that last night I had a citizen talk to me about how we always approve projects. Well, the bottom line is, sometimes legally, we don't have a choice. I mean, we have state laws and federal laws that we have to abide by, and that puts us in a bind, and that's exactly what I told him. And I said, and if you want to see the laws changed, you know, you need to go to the state and federal levels. Unfortunately, we're not the sole legality here handling this. So Anyway, I don't like having citizens that are upset. I think it's very sad, but Commissioner Whitmore is correct, in the hospitals and the medical facilities that are coming that way, and thank God for that. I think the road is a problem, and it's something that we're going to have to take a look at ourselves.
Right.
What I don't like about it is I think the developer should have to pay to fix that road, but we can't do that either. So, there we are. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. There are no further commissioners on the board for deliberation. We've held public comment. We have a motion to approve the motion, the agenda item as written, and we have a second. We'll now hold the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 All opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Clerk, the motion passes by a vote of 6-1 with Commissioner Servia in opposition. Mrs. DePaul, you would please introduce item number 17. It's on the last page.
Item number 17, approval and execution of land use restriction agreement for Manatee Ventures Incorporated.
Who is here to present? Commissioners, do we need a presentation on this item?
But this
Would
isn't
you-
really a real.
Are any
land use
commissioners
meeting.
requesting an abbreviated presentation?
This is just the Lord
Okay.
for Steve Reinhardt's property.
Hearing none, then we're going to open this up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on item number 17? Okay, seeing no one, we'll go to the phone. Has anyone called in to speak on 17? No callers either. Then we're going to close public comment, and Commissioners Satcher and Cruz are on the board.
Somebody
Commissioner Satcher.
Making a motion.
I move to approve the execution of land use restriction agreement for Manatee Ventures, Inc.
Second.
So a motion by Commissioner Satcher to approve the agenda item as written, and we have a second by Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Cruz, you're also on the board for
I
discussion.
was just going to come on and make a motion.
Okay, with no other commissioners on the board, having held public comment, we have a motion to approve and a second. We'll hold the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Clerk, it passes unanimously by a vote of 7-0. We will then go to Commissioner Whitmore. I actually don't see your item on the list, but,
It's number 19 on the green sheet.
okay, so it's not on my sheet, but I know it's there. So Commissioner Whitmore, please introduce your item.
Do you get a different sheet than we do?
I get sort of an outline so to help me go through the agenda to run the meeting.
Okay. I thought, I brought this up since we don't do commissioners' comments, so I had to put it on the future work session agendas. This says commissioners' agenda, though.
Just real quick, I don't want to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but my question is, I see the topic, and that topic is directly related to our county administrator who's not here. Do you believe, and this is, if you think it is, then by all means, continue.
Yeah.
But do you think this is the best day to have the conversation where we can't actually dialogue with the very person you're trying to dialogue with?
Well, no, on what the form I filled out, it was to discuss, this issue is to be discussed to bring it to a future work session, but it doesn't say that on the heading, but that's the space I put it under. And it was just to, and whether the board wants to bring this up, because this was decided by the administrator, and I think it needs to be decided by the board if we're gonna do this. And I totally don't believe in government running a private, interfering with the private sector on this. I don't want to run a flea market. I mean, if you're giving me a choice, I'd rather run the jail or something that's related to the county. Well, we've tried that before, it didn't work out, just so you know. But I'm not a flea market. I think it's a little bit out there. And just for the next meeting, or just don't do it. Let's just don't have it. Or unless somebody else opens something else somewhere else. But for us to say we're going to run it, and I just found that out also about the water taxi when I was chairing the TDC, that we're going to pay for that. So we need to talk about this stuff at a work session, that's all.
Commissioner Baugh, and then Servia.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Whitmore, I was kind of surprised to see this on the agenda with this being land use and the administrator not being here. I don't feel like that today is the day for this discussion. I don't think it's fair to bring it up when the administrator's not here. I will tell you that I've had conversation. There's more to this story than is being told, I think. So I'm not going to discuss this any more than that today. I think it's in poor taste with our administrator not being here to bring it up. So I would I'm done with this. I'm not going to
Okay, well, and I'll do.
anything on it today.
In all due respect, when I put this on the agenda Friday, I didn't know our administrator was going on a trip to Pennsylvania. So that's, if I would have known that, I would have. But again, it's just for the board to ask to put this on a future work session. That's what the agenda title said that I filled out. Because I don't think anybody should be going out for bids and all this without our board talking about this.
Mr. Chair, if I
Ever heard-
may.
I thought
since
you
I'm
weren't going
not
to talk
done,
about it.
You can dialogue, you're fine.
apologize.
You're fine.
Okay. I would suggest, I think it would be best for Commissioner Whitmore and Commissioner Serbia, if there's any questions on that, I don't know. I
Why
know she's on,
Serbia? Why are you
that
bringing
they
Serbia?
need.
Well, she's on the
I'm
board.
sorry?
Oh,
I think there should be a conversation with the chair, with the administrator before this is brought
Have.
and put on anywhere.
I have.
So that's,
That's why I'm bringing it to the board. This has to be a policy decision.
well, I don't think that we need to have that discussion when we don't have all the information.
No, you're right. I'd like it at a
Thank
work
you.
session.
Commissioner Servia, Bellamy, and Cruz.
So Commissioner Whitmore, are you making a motion that we hold a work session on this issue? Because if you are, I'll support that.
Well, that's exactly what because again, when you fill out the agenda thing on a land use day, there's no commissioner reports. It says commissioners for future work sessions. But when you read the green sheet, it doesn't say that. So yes, I was just going to make a motion to put it on a future work session.
Second.
Before we run a flea market, I think we all need to have public input.
Second, and the reason I'm
So we have a
seconding
motion,
it.
we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Whitmore to place a,
Issue.
yeah, to request, to schedule a work session for the island, for the beach market.
Right. Got it.
Yes.
And a
We're talking
second by
about a
Commissioner
standalone
Serbia.
work session, right? This is like an hour conversation. I'm not coming in just to talk about a flea market. This could be part of a work session, but I'm not having a whole work session on
Well,
this.
and
Oh, no, I
if I
don't.
may, if I still
So
have the floor.
Serbia still has the floor, then Cruz and Satcher.
And sometimes we pile up 3 or 4 things, as you know, on a work session, and they might take a 30-minute discussion. It is unfortunate that we even have to go to a work session, because this is a policy matter that should have been brought to this board to discuss, but we find ourselves in a position where we're backpedaling to try and correct a situation. So I am in favor of whatever we can do to bring that policy decision back to the board.
Whatever it's
So,
going to be. Right.
Whatever it's going to be. Thank you.
Cruz and Satcher. Oh, I don't care that much. Satcher.
Commissioner Serbia, I was just going to ask if you'd be, if you would consider just tabling it, and then it comes back as an agenda item rather than a work session off of one thing.
It'll be an hour
So
discussion.
it'd be at a regular meeting. But, it's your.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up and say that I agree with Commissioner Satcher. I think it could just be an agenda item on a regular meeting. Once staff has put together their proposal, they should just bring it to us like they do anything else, propose it in a meeting, we vote up or down. That's the way I'd like to see it. Now we have Bellamy, Cruz, Whitmore, Servia. Commissioner Bellamy.
I just think that there's a request for a discussion.
That's all.
I also think that the discussion needs to take place with the county administrator. I also support the approach, the discussion, the county administrator, and the hour conversation being on the agenda. We are enough right here where we can say we can do that and move past this. It's just all of us having a mutual agreement. We know that we want the county administrator. We know that we want to make sure that we discuss it. All right, and I also think that something about the water taxi came up also. And I guess where we can really end this is just be on the same page and say, we want it to be an agenda item, and we want the county administrator to be present, and whenever the next meeting, we move forward with it, and we're there.
Yeah, I would support that, Commissioner Bellamy.
Regular or work?
Regular.
Commissioner Bellamy?
I'm next on the order.
Yeah, regular, I think is where he's going, right?
Well,
Yes.
that's not on our agenda rules. This thing was only said I could put it on a work session, so you tell me what to do.
So Cruz, then Whitmore.
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo so we can move on. I would request that the motioner modify it basically to ask for approval, and not that we really need it, but just so we know it doesn't fall off of it and someone doesn't try to kick it down the road. We are authorizing the county administrator to put this topic on the next regular Board of County Commission agenda for discussion. And then we could all have our briefings during that meeting. But we're all collectively saying, don't even think about kicking this down the road or ignoring this. We're telling you to put it on that agenda. Whatever long it takes, it takes.
And
But-
water tax.
When is the next regular,
September.
our next regular meeting?
Either the first or
And
September
water tax,
13th.
too.
September 13th.
Right.
Okay.
Perfect.
I will place it on the agenda for September 13th as a regular item for a presentation, and water taxi as well. I will put both of those on for the 13th.
Oh, and just to be clear on the agenda, it says commissioner requests for future work session items. That's the only time I
I
could
get
have
it.
asked it.
I get it.
Okay.
I put you on. I mean,
Oh, no, no,
you're on
I
the
know,
agenda.
but
Okay.
this just says commissioner agenda, so.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
either way, you got on, so. Okay. Whitmore and Baugh, do you need any further? You're both on the board. Commissioner Whitmore, you're first on the board. Did you have anything else?
No, do we're
So-
going to do that motion?
Yeah, excuse me, so Commissioner Whitmore, you have to say, do you accept the amendment to your motion?
you.
Yes.
It's a friendly amendment to direct,
I'd like you to withdraw the motion, and I told you I'll put it on for the
As long as you
13th.
include that and the
Taxi,
water taxi.
I'll put both on.
okay, just say withdraw the motion.
Withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Second or withdraw the motion? Okay.
Commissioner Baugh.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just real quick, I mean, the water taxi, I would assume, I mean, I know what's going on with it, but I would assume that Elliot will bring that to us when he has everything lined up. So I don't think that needs to be discussed in this motion at all, but I think you're pushing things on that, but anyway, whatever. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Whitmore.
I chaired the TDC, whatever day it was, and he gave a report to the TDC board, and it's already moved forward, and I just read it in the Island newspaper, and it does say the county's funding, so I think that we need to talk about it at a regular meeting, because I'd like to know where the money is, and Bill Clegg told me it can't come from TDC money, because it's not going to a beach, it's going to a pier, which isn't, we'll talk about it at our.
We'll talk about it on the 13th.
Yeah.
Anything further, commissioners?
No, thank you.
We're adjourned.
Boy, 10:21, good job.